Hi, hello again and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Please leave a like and subscribe. It's a free way that you can help me out. Today, we will be doing an update on a case that I've already covered here on my channel. There has been some new developments in this case and I felt like it would be a good idea to give you an update as it has come to some sort of finality after 8 very long years. It's a case that I've been following very closely and a case that I feel very passionate about. The case that I'm talking about is the case of Sarah and Jacob Hoggle that went missing in 2014 whilst in the care of their mother, Catherine Hoggle. I won't be giving the full background on this case because there's not enough time, but I will link the original video I did down below and in the cards here above, if you would like to check that out first to get more background on this case. I will, however, give you a quick rundown on it just for some perspective, so let's get into it then. By 2014, Roy Turner and Catherine Hoggle had 3 children together. A 5-year-old son who I will not name, a 3-year-old daughter called Sarah, and a 2-year-old son named Jacob. Catherine had been suffering with paranoid schizophrenia as well as depression and had been involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility twice since 2012. In 2014, she had been doing much better since she had been receiving treatment and taking medication. She and Troy were no longer a couple, but Troy wanted her involved in their children's lives as much as possible without endangering them. So, he allowed her to live in his apartment in Clarksburg, Maryland, with him and the kids. However, there were strict rules. Catherine was never to be left alone with the kids, and she was not allowed to drive. He set up appointments with babysitters or made sure to have either someone from his family or hers around whenever he had to go to work or run some errands. That way, there was always someone to look out for the kids. On 7 September 2014, Catherine and the kids went with her father Randy to her mother Lindsay's house that was about 15 miles away from their apartment. She lived in Gaithersburg. Lindsay went out at one point, leaving Randy and Catherine alone at her house with the 3 children. Catherine then asked her father whether she could borrow his car as she wanted to take 2-year-old Jacob to go and get pizza. Not sure why he allowed it, as he was very aware that she was not allowed to be alone with her children, or she wasn't allowed to drive. But he gave her the keys and she left with Jacob. When Lindsay returned, she went into panic with Catherine being gone with Jacob. So she told Randy that he needed to go out and look for her, which he did. But he came back and he couldn't find her. Catherine returned to their house around 7, which was around 4 hours after she left, with Jacob. She told her parents that she left him at a known friend of her oldest son for a sleepover. Her parents accepted this explanation and left it there. No one thought to inform Troy of any of this. Around 9:30, they left her mother's house, and her father Randy drove her and the 3 kids, or the 2 kids at least, back to Troy's apartment. Troy returned from work around 1 a.m. the next morning, as he worked night shift, and when he returned to his apartment, Catherine was sitting on the steps waiting for him, and asked him to run an errand for her quickly, which he did, and when he returned, he was very tired, and didn't look into the children's rooms as he usually did when returning home, and he went straight to bed. The next morning, 8 September, he was awoken by his oldest son, which was strange, and when he got out of bed, he noticed that Catherine, Randy, and his 2 other kids, 3-year-old Sarah and 2-year-old Jacob, were not in the apartment. He immediately panicked and phoned Randy, who said that when he left for work, Catherine was still there. He started looking for his keys and wallet and noticed that they were gone. and that's when he realized that Catherine took his car. He tried not to panic so that he didn't upset his older son. He got him dressed and he took him to the bus stop, and as soon as he got him there, he phoned 911. He was still on the phone with the operator when Catherine pulled up in his minivan, but she didn't have Sarah or Jacob with her. Troy was completely freaked out when he saw that the children were not with her. He asked her what was going on, and she told him not to panic, as she dropped the kids off at a new daycare and she wanted him to sleep in. She told him that it was a daycare that she wanted to test out, but throughout the day, he got more and more uncomfortable with the whole situation. When they went to pick up their oldest son from the bus stop, he told her that they should go to the daycare to pick up Sarah and Jacob as well, because he also wanted to check it out and see whether it would be a good fit. But Catherine couldn't remember where the daycare was. She didn't have their number, and she couldn't even remember the name of the daycare. Troy immediately went into panic mode. He phoned her mother Lindsay to pick up oldest son, as he wanted to start looking for the other two, and try and retrace Catherine's steps to try and jog her memory. Lindsay picked up their oldest child and got into a fight with Catherine because she didn't want Lindsay to take him. After a little bit of driving around and them getting into an argument, she said that she could now remember where the daycare was, and Troy felt immense relief. He started driving in the direction that she pointed out and asked him whether they could stop for a caffeinated soda on their way at a Chick-fil-A in Germantown. This wasn't uncommon, as her medication made her lethargic, and the soda seemed to alleviate some of that symptoms. They went in, got the soda, and as they were walking back to the parking lot, she said that she needed to use the bathroom and wanted to get a refill. Troy said that he would wait for her in the car. But Catherine didn't come back. She escaped from another entrance. Troy immediately phoned the authorities to intervene and went to Lindsay's house and waited for them there. That is where he learned that Jacob hadn't even been with them at home the night before, and no one thought to tell him. The search for Sarah, Jacob, and Catherine immediately began, and posters were put up everywhere. 4 days later, on the 12th of September, Catherine was picked up in Germantown, close to the Chick-fil-A that she went missing from, still wearing the same clothes, but her hair had been cut. But she didn't have Sarah and Jacob with her. She was taken in for questioning and took police on the runaround, at first saying that she left them with a friend and gave a name, but there was no such friend. Then she said she left them at a park and offered to take them there, which she did. But she soon realized that she would not be able to escape from said park, and they went back to the police station. Nonetheless, she did not give them a straight answer. She only kept telling them that the children are safe and with someone that she knows, but she would not divulge any other information to them. She was subsequently charged with a misdemeanor for child neglect and preventing the course of justice. Due to her mental health struggles, she was moved to a mental health facility, where she would remain until she was deemed fit to stand trial.
Breaking story with a mother in jail and her 2 toddlers still missing.
We keep a ray of hope that Sarah and Jacob are still out there and can be reunited with their family. But what I will tell you at this point, what we are doing is we're transitioning our operations as investigators.
The nightmare for this family started on September 7th when Catherine Hoggle told her parents she took 2-year-old Jacob out for pizza and returned without him. She said she left him at a friend's house for a sleepover. The next day, she told their father she dropped both Sarah and Jacob at a new daycare in the area, but couldn't remember anything about it. That's when Turner got worried, and Catherine and he headed to the police station to report the children missing. The two stopped at a Chick-fil-A restaurant along the way, and Catherine Hoggle disappeared. Worried for his daughter and his grandchildren, Randy Hoggle begged her to come home.
Everyone here is committed to, if you just come and get help, we'll all help you. And for that, I just want to say, please come home. We miss you, and we miss the kids.
Hoggle was spotted by a citizen 4 days later in Germantown, described by police as having dirt under her fingernails, 2 missing persons posters about her kids, and a shorter haircut.
Major crimes investigators interviewed her for 15 hours. I will tell you, some of the best investigators on this department went in to talk with her, and our first and pretty much only question was, where are Jacob and where are Sarah?
Court documents outline several tales Catherine Hoggle told, at one point saying she dropped them with a friend in Bethesda, and at other times saying she left them at a Germantown park. But just what happened to those 2 small children is still unanswered, and the search continues. Hoggle was arrested September 12th in connection with their disappearance and won't tell anyone where they are. Scores of search teams scour wooded areas from Clarksburg to Germantown, looking for any signs of the missing children. Friends passed out flyers, others flew search missions by air. So far, they've come up empty.
As part of that report, Krista was able to get exclusive access to the lead detective working this case. And that interview was so interesting, we wanted to give you an extended look. She started by asking Captain Darren Frank for the latest on the case.
Right now, we still have our managed search operation teams out looking at more refined areas. We've done a few peer reviews of our search operation, and they've all come back saying that we were right on target for where we should be looking. So now we're just going to go back and slowly go over a few areas that we believe have a higher probability. You also have Troy and volunteers searching other areas that they've been working with us, talking to us about things that they can do. So we've pointed them in a couple directions on areas they could search. Investigatively, we still continue the homicide investigation, collecting evidence, whether it be from the family or from people that had interaction with Catherine. And then also the other piece of it is running down any leads if someone believes they see Sarah or Jacob at any point. My investigators or patrol officers will immediately respond, or if it's an old sighting, they'll try and determine if it's a good sighting or not. It's she liked to be in park areas. The urban areas, if you're trying to hide something, if you're trying to hide a crime, our experience is you wouldn't go into a residence or a commercial property. So these are the highest probability for us, especially considering she's not giving us anything to go on as far as where the kids are located, and around schools and churches. Big open areas that people aren't normally in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the Amber Alert's difficult. At the time that we were making decisions, there was no vehicle involved, and the Amber Alert system is really a highway system to get the word out, to look for a vehicle and the missing persons. So you never want to overuse a resource like that so that it just becomes noise in the background. You always want it to be effective. So in working with the state, it's not something that would have met the criteria for putting out an Amber Alert because, again, there was no vehicle and we knew that Catherine was involved. The other part of it is there are parental abductions all of the time across the United States. And at the time that we made these decisions, we felt we had better avenues than using that resource. So the photos were originally put out when we started the investigation. Now, as we're going through and we're still trying to find Jacob and Sarah and have any clue as to where specifically Catherine was, we know the general vicinity. What we want is to the public and business owners to look at their surveillance cameras and see if they might see the vehicle or see Catherine Jacob, Sarah, so that we can focus in even more on where to look for them. It's, again, a lot of area, 20,000, 30,000 acres, even more square miles that we have to look for her. The cars become important to fill in the gap, so we just want their help. We've collected a lot of video already. Now we're trying to do everything possible. I'm convinced they're not with someone. As far as an actual location, we won't know until we find them. There's probabilities that would indicate in a wooded area or a more secluded area. No, we don't believe so. The story that she gave us, we confronted her that's not factual, and eventually she changed her story to leaving them in a location. And there's certain things that her lawyers would have to report to us if the kids were anywhere other than where they should be, which is with Troy at this time. And they don't have that information for us.
You can watch Krista's entire interview with Captain Frank on the MyMC Media website. There's no one who wants to find Sarah and Jacob more than their father, Troy Turner. He was in the courtroom for Catherine Hoggle's first court appearance, and afterward he addressed reporters outside the courthouse.
And anyone who knows anything, please just call the police, call 9 emergency numbers if you have a tip. Call 911 if you see the kids. If you or someone out there who has the kids or know someone who's helping them, drop them off at a hospital, a library, or fire department, anything. I don't care who you are. I don't want to know who you are. Just drop them off, give me my kids back, and everything's cool.
That was Troy Turner several weeks ago. I recently sat down with Mr. Turner for an exclusive interview at our station. I asked him how he's doing and what he wants people watching this report to do to help him find Sarah and Jacob.
Just be vigilant. When you see these flyers, look at the kids' faces, not necessarily hair color and things like that, because all that can be changed. So look at facial features, their eyes, their noses, their smiles, things like that aren't going to change. Jacob and Sarah, I mean, they're amazing. Their personalities are huge. Both of them in completely different ways. Jacob's constantly smiling and happy. They both love to play at the park, sliding, swings. Sarah, I call her my tomboy princess. I mean, she's probably the roughest one out of all my kids. I have a picture of her on my cell phone. Like what? I think it would have been probably about 3 or 4 months ago. And she's 3 doing pull-ups at the park. If she was a boy, she'd probably grow up to be a linebacker. But yeah, I mean, they're incredible kids. And they need to come home. I believe they're still in this area personally, from what I've seen and what I've heard. One of the reasons is Catherine continuously returned to Germantown. Not just Germantown, but the same area of Germantown where she got caught. She was predictably there. A good friend of mine and myself, we were driving by there looking for her right around the same time. Whenever I talked to her, she told me she saw us drive by. That's when she jumped back into the breezeway. That's when the guy who called the police saw her the first time. And when she saw us drive back by, she was ducking into a little cubby in there to try to duck back. So he recognized her. He went and looked at the flyer we had put up over his mailbox, came back to make sure it was her, had his girlfriend call the police, and then he sat out there, in case she walked off somewhere so he could tell the police where she had went. She was there to a point of predictability, is the point. So if she had done something terrible to him, then why wouldn't she have just been gone? Because she could have been. I believe my kids are alive 100%. And as their father, my job now is to believe in my children, believe in myself, and go get them. So the police are doing their job, I'm doing mine. And a big part of that is, we were talking about the illness or fabricating things and stuff like that. No matter how bad it got, she never, ever showed signs of being willing to hurt the kids. So there's no doubt in my mind. A lot of times people ask me, well, how are you still standing? How are you doing this? Because my kids are out there. I believe it 100%. It's not a hope, it's a belief. There's definitely times where I miss them so badly, I just want to curl up into a ball, but I can't do that because that's not what my kids need. My kids need me to be exactly who and what I am, what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis until I bring them home.
The months and years that followed involved major searches for Sarah and Jacob. Some community run, some ran by the police. But there was no luck. They didn't find them. The search even moved to some of the adjacent counties, but there was no trace of them anywhere to be found. Troy, however, has never given up on finding his kids. Even though he has accepted that they might no longer be alive, he still wants to bring them home. No court trial could in the meantime be held until Catherine was deemed fit to stand trial. Maryland also has a statute of limitation for how long someone can be held under a charge while still being deemed unfit to stand trial. This is to ensure that someone is not kept under a charge indefinitely while being deemed mentally not fit to stand trial. The limitation on this is 10 years for capital crimes, 5 years for felony and violent crimes, and 3 years for any other crime. By 2017, Catherine was still deemed as incompetent to stand trial, and the 3-year mark for her misdemeanor charge approached. On 14 September 2017, she was charged with 2 counts of felony murder, which gave them 5 years for her to be restored, so she could stand trial, but time dragged on and this never seemed to happen. Through all her court appearances, she was still deemed unfit to stand trial. Troy has always felt that Catherine has had the capacity to be restored and that she was faking most of her symptoms to remain in the mental facility and to not be sent to prison. A deadline was set that Catherine would need to be deemed fit to stand trial by 1 December 2022, or the charges against her would be dropped, as it would have been 5 years since she had been charged and 5 years that she had been deemed unfit to stand trial. On 30 November 2022, a judge dropped the murder charges against Jacob Hoggle. The judge dropped the charges after citing laws that dictate how long criminal charges can be held against defendants who are mentally unfit to stand trial. He said, "She has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, and general anxiety disorder. She suffers from chronic symptoms of impaired judgment, poor insight, paranoia, and disorganized thinking, and has been deemed incompetent to stand trial." The judge spoke about the fairness of not putting people on trial who can't adequately speak with their attorneys to help them defend themselves. Catherine's attorney has long said that his client's thinking was far too delusional to discuss legal proceedings or for her to participate in her own trial. He stated, "She is a profoundly ill woman. She has been an ill woman since at least 2012. She has taken medications of last resort for years and still remains ill. And in the US and in the state of Maryland, we don't try people for any crime if they can't defend themselves." After dismissing the charges, the judge civilly committed her to a secure hospital, saying that without the structure and stability of a hospital setting, she would be a danger to herself and others. This ruling of now committing her civilly gave circuit judges and prosecutors little to no say over when Catherine could be released. Troy also spoke in court, saying to the judge, "I appreciate the fact that there is a process, and I appreciate your fairness. I thank you for how you have been." Catherine sat about 30 feet away from him, and her face held a stoic bearing as he spoke. Troy continued by saying, "However, the system itself has failed my 2 children. You have a woman over there who killed 2 kids. This is a travesty. My kids are gone because of her." Afterward, he also spoke to news agencies, saying, "The system is broken. Whenever someone can murder 2 children and then be treated as a regular patient and be given more rights than the kids that were killed or the survivors around them who they have affected, there is something really wrong. When this is allowed to move forward this way, it is a completely broken system and it needs to change. This woman is allowed to kill 2 children and then be put in a hospital. She belongs in jail. Everything with this is wrong. This fight is not over for me and my family. we are going to continue to pursue justice in whatever way we can. I give it a year. Now that the charges are dropped, I give it a year where she would have the willingness to get better. I have spoken to her. I have heard what she has said. I heard what is in the records in the courtroom. I've watched with my own eyes her sitting there, communicating with her attorney. Just yesterday, she brought in a piece of paper that she had highlighted herself and handed to her attorney. There is information that her attorney could have only gotten from her. As far as meaningful communication goes, I would say it is definitely there. Under the rules for civil commitment in Maryland, medical facilities must demonstrate twice a year that a patient meets 5 criteria for continued hospitalization in court. Patients must continue to have a mental disorder. They must need inpatient care. They must present a danger to themselves or others. They must be unable or unwilling to be voluntarily hospitalized. And they also should not be able to be adequately treated in a less restrictive place. Given this, Catherine could at any time be deemed fit and now released from the mental facility, as she is kept there under no charges whatsoever. If she does end up being deemed restored and competent, nothing would, however, stop the prosecutors from refiling the charges against her again. The state's attorney said, "As long as I'm state's attorney, if she is ever deemed safe enough to be released and gets out, I will recharge her with 2 counts of first-degree murder."
This does mean the charges were officially dismissed against her today. Now, some family members, they did anticipate this outcome, but still they were crying in court when the judge gave his ruling. The children's father also spoke, saying he appreciates the judge. He also said this to reporters after.
First, a lot of you I've seen a lot over the years, and thank you for keeping my kids out there and helping us with that part. I guess the best place to start is where we're at. As I said in the courtroom, for anyone who's in there, this system is broken. Whenever someone can murder 2 children and then be treated as a regular patient, be given more rights than the kids or the survivors around them who they've affected, there's something really wrong.
The last time 3-year-old Sarah and 2-year-old Jacob Hoggle were last seen was in the custody of their mother, Catherine Hoggle, back in 2014. She was initially charged with misdemeanor abduction, but then indicted for murder in 2017, giving officials 5 years more from that indictment to restore Catherine Hoggle to stand trial, or the charges would be dismissed. That deadline is actually tomorrow. Hoggle's attorney said since her arrest, at least 19 reports from the psychiatric facility treating Hoggle all found her incompetent to stand trial, but left open the possibility of her being restored. That was until more recently. Prosecutors in the most recent days tried to challenge those reports, believing Hoggle was faking it to not stand trial. They believe other evidence in this case, if allowed, would have shown that, but the judge sided with those reports, not finding Hoggle can properly aid in her own self-defense.
For all those people in the community who love these kids, tough day. My personal hope is that we will not have justice ultimately denied, but merely delayed.
She has taken medications of last resort for years, and she remains ill. And in the United States and in the state of Maryland, we don't try people for anything, for any crime, if they can't defend themselves.
And the judge ordered Hoggle to involuntary confinement. The court is not going to get the same updates on her progress with the charges now dismissed. But if it comes to be that she can be restored, the state's attorney does hope to charge her again. Back to you.
That is all that I have for you on this case update. It's such a sad and tragic ending on all sides. They still have no answers of what happened to these children. They still have not brought them home. She is still sick, and there's no clear way forward. Please let me know your thoughts, theories, and opinions on the case below. Until the next time, please stay safe out there, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Until next time, bye!